Oh hi. Mariupol, the city in Donetsk region of Ukraine, the largest city on the bank of the Sea of Azov in the mouth of the Kalmius and Kalchuk rivers. Center of the Mariupol agglomeration. The number of actual population of the city for January 1, 2021 was 431,859. Within the city council. Taking into account urban-type settlements, the old Crimea, Sartana, Tolokovka, the villages of Gutovo, Vinogradnoye and the settlement of Lomykino subordinated to the city council. For January 1, 2020, 457,439 people. One of the most important centers of the Ukrainian metallurgy and large seaport. Mariupol is included into 10 the largest cities of Ukraine, is the most important industrial and large economic center of the country. Area of compact accommodation of Greeks of Priozovi. In 2012 it was recognized as the government of Ukraine one of the most comfortable for residents in the country of the cities. In 2022 for defeat, Massachusetts heroism and firmness of citizens during repulse of the armed aggression of the Russian Federation minds Ukraine, the hero town is awarded with the rank. Geography. Height above sea level -67 meters. Mariupol, the large city which is in the south of Donetsk region on the northern coast of the Sea of Azov, in the mouth of the Kalmius River. The city occupies the space of 166.0 km. With the suburbs subordinated to municipal council -244.0 km. The area under building -106.0 km, green massifs -80.6 km. Soils of the territory of the city mainly Solonetsk Chernozems, with a significant amount of underground groundwaters that often leads to landslides. Local climate moderate and continental with long hot summer. Frequent droughts and hot dry winds. And in the soft low snow winter, there are thaw, fogs. The region has big thermal resources with prevalence in warm season of clear sunny days. Sunshine duration from May to September -1544 hours. An annual amount of precipitation -420 May year. Agroclimatic conditions allowed to grow up in suburbs of Mariupol thermophilic crops with the long vegetative period. Sunflower, melon, grapes and peaches. However, water resources in the region aren't enough and therefore for needs of the population and the industry ponds and various reservoirs are used. The direction of wind in the winter mainly east, in the summer southeast. Mariupol is located in the center of the Azov recreational area of Donetsk region. Thanks to the breeze phenomena, the Azov coast gained special appeal, abundance of the sun, carrying out from the sea of huge Massachusetts of the clean air saturated with ozone, mineral salts and minerals. Chloride, sodium, iodine, bromine. Breezes promote formation of natural ventilation of the coast, sharply reduce feeling of a heat. Mariupol, the popular place for summer sea holiday. Duration of the recreational period, which in Mariupol begins in the middle of May and comes to an end in the second decade of September when average daily air temperature exceeds 15 C. In July-August she reaches 23-26 C. Is important. The daily day and night difference of temperatures makes about 10 C in the summer. To this period there corresponds the swimming season when water in the sea gets warm up to 18-23 C, and in June, August in separate days, up to 26-29 C. Frosts come in October and come to an end in April. Average air temperature in January -2.5 C, in July +24.0 C. The absolute maximum of the air temperature of +38.0 C. August 2017. Absolute minimum makes 27.2 C. January 2006. Mariupol is high on the list in Ukraine on volumes of emissions of harmful substances by the industrial enterprises. The largest pollutants of the environment in the city are Azovstal and Memkoviliach iron and steel works, especially in Aglofabrika and the domain shop. Not the last role is played by unsuccessful location of metallurgical complexes Azovstal. Actually in several kilometers from the downtown. The plant was constructed in the 1930th years near the mouth of the Kalmius River, actually on the coast of the Sea of Azov, without windrows. As in this region winds of east and northeast directions prevail, a considerable part of emissions of metallurgical complex are the share of the most densely populated districts of the city. The main share of pollution of water resources of the region of Mariupol, of course, belongs to metallurgical complexes. Also the seaport with a constant overload of such freights as sulfur, coal pitch, coal and other types of minerals doesn't lag behind. The vessels coming into the port water area not always carry out standards of ecological requirements of the legislation. Constant approach of moorings under construction and warehouses of seaport leads to gradual disappearance of a pearl of the city, the beach of the settlement, Sandy, once very popular among citizens and city visitors. Sulfur since 2007 in the Mariupol port isn't processed and the coal pitch is overloaded with the ship repair plant. History. It is specified in pre-revolutionary encyclopedic sources, such as Gies and Asby, that several centuries ago on the place of Mariupol there was a settlement of Adamaka, an outpost of the Zaporizhia Cossacks of Damak. As the city appeared in the 16th century Adilgiri in 1577 on the place, and nearby. The legendary Pilastra who is marked out on the European Portolana to the west of modern Mariupol, based Balashed fortress. After his death during the war in Transcaucasia, it is killed on July 25, 1579. Of Balashed became the center. Option 1 of the centers. The Viva of the Ulis in the north of the Crimean Khanate. This city, in Slavic tradition, Belisare, gave the name to a seaside braid in the north of the Sea of Azov. There is an opinion that Balashed was in Kalmius's mouth, that is on the place of the modern city of Mariupol. The city, more precisely his primary look, was built up in 1778 when the district city of the Azov province Pavlovsk was put. Sometimes I was called as Pavlorad, to which in 1779 the name Mariupol is appropriated. In 1780 in Mariupol and in his vicinities lodged the Orthodox Greeks brought in 1778 from the Crimean Khanate, and Urim. The significant damage was caused to Mariupol during the Crimean War of 1853-1856. Sea trade because of military operations was suspended. In the spring of 1855 the Anglo-French squadron entered the Sea of Azov. On May 24, under cover of ship artillery in Mariupol, the enemy landing which destroyed warehouses in port was landed. I burned several houses in the city. Carrying out in 1882 the railroad which connected him to Donbas and other economic centers of the country was essential for the city. The Donetsk coal began to come to the Mariupol port, which was in the mouth of the Kalmius River. Increase in goods turnover caused construction of new Mariupol trade port, which was conducted in 1886-1889. The new port caused trade revival, inflow of the population to the city. In the city, consulates and the consular agencies of Greece, Italy, Austria-Hungary, Turkey, Belgium, Germany, Great Britain opened. It became the industrial center Mariupol at the end of the 19th century, when here steel works of the Nikopol Mariupol Mountain and Metallurgical Society and Society, Russian Providence, which produced a steel sheet, pipeline pipes, railway rails and other products were constructed. At the end of the 19th century in Mariupol, except metallurgical, the plants worked. Agricultural, mechanical engineering, iron, 6 tanning, 27 brick and tile, macaroni factory, 2 steam mills. In 1878, the resident of Mariupol 5.50. Shapovalov created professional theatrical company in the city, and in 1887 opening of the building of city theater took place. Later also other cultural institutions, printing houses, city public library, movie theaters are created. There is the first city newspaper. In 1892 the collection of lectures about Mariupol and its vicinities came up. On December 30, 1917 Mariupol was taken by parts of the Red Army under Antonov Ovsenko's command. On May 1, 1918 the city was occupied by the German troops. In November 1918, after leaving of the German-Austrian troops, Mariupol passed under control of the Don Army. In February of the next year in the city the landing of volunteer army which came to the rescue the Don Cossacks landed. On March 29, 1919 Mariupol was freed by the 3rd Crew. Brigade Commander N. 1. Makhno, and the 1st Zadneprovsky Soviet Rifle Division. P.D. Dybenko. At the end of May, turned into counterattack, troops of Sire occupied Prizovie and Mariupol, but in December 1919 the city was again freed by Bolsheviks. In March 1920 in Mariupol the Red Azov military flotilla, which first commander was St. Markalev, is created. The flotilla performed a number of successful combat operations of the minding White Guard fleet of Wrangel on the Sea of Azov. After civil war the Red Azov military flotilla was transferred to Sevastopol, and on its basis revival of the Black Sea Fleet began. In 1920 steelworks Nikopol Mariupol and Russian Providence were nationalized and united in one plant, to which in 1924 the name of Ilyich is appropriated. In the early 30s the Azokstal steelworks became the main building of the city. By the end of the 1930th years Mariupol considerably grew and changed. If in 1925 a little more than 50,000 people lived in him, then by 1941 the population increased up to 241,000 a man. There were new multi-story buildings in factory areas. Broad development was gained by individual construction of housing. In 1925 the first buses began to ply between the downtown and the remote areas, port and the plant of Ilyich. In 1933 the first tram line which connected the city to the plant, and later, with port, was started up. Streets were lit and planted trees and shrubs. New parks appeared in factory settlements and in port. In 1937 in Mariupol and Taganrog there took place Massachusetts arrests of Greeks from Eve. When the Great Patriotic War began, residents of Mariupol together with all people rose in defense of the homeland. Thousands of residents left on the front. In the city I began work with No. 1335. The enterprises reconstructed production for needs of the front. The Ilyachevsk metallurgists produced armored steel for the T-34 tanks, torpedo boats and the Il-2 planes attack planes. Pontoon bridges, brownie kolpaki for machine gun nests, a brownoplashkaka for pillboxes, anti-tank hedgehogs made at the plant of metalwork. At the Azokstal plant made cases for air bombs and trunks of battalion mortars. When the front line approached the city, evacuation of the industrial enterprises and people to the Urals and to Siberia was organized. It is known that the echelon on which carried the equipment and people at evacuation got under bombing near Taganrog. Some attendants died, some were wounded, reached Mariupol on foot. In Mariupol there were German troops and people who came from Taganrog by then. The shortages of drugs and lack of a possibility of treatment died of wounds. In days of the German occupation which continued nearly 2 years. From October 8, 1941 to September 10, 1943. Hitlerites shot about 10,000 people in the city. About 50,000 young men and girls were stolen to Germany. In a concentration camp about 36,000 Soviet prisoners of war died from hunger and diseases. Despite Massachusetts executions, on the cruel occupational mode, underground and patriotic groups acted in the city. On September 10, 1943 the city was freed from invaders by troops of the 44th Army of the Southern Front and a sea landing of the Azov military flotilla. After the end of war in the city, recovery work actively began. The industry of the city was restored. Metallurgical giants, the plants of Ilyich and Azokstal, seaport and other enterprises are lifted from ruins. By the end of 1950 of all 48 industrial enterprises not only reached pre-war level of production, but also exceeded him for 30%. On October 22, 1948 the resolution of Council of Ministers of the USSR to the city appropriated the name Zhdanov in honor of Soviet party and the statesman A. Zhdanov. In 1953 in Zhdanov the Azov regional management of the Black Sea Shipping Company, which in 1967 is transformed to the Azov Sea Shipping Company, was created. His vessels visited about 400 ports, more than 70 countries of the world. Due to the expansion of industrial and housing construction in the city, the powerful construction organizations were created. In April 1958 the tube rolling plant of a name of Kubyshev was merged into the plant of Ilyich.
At the same time, from machine building and parts of metallurgical shops of the plant of a name of Ilyich, the plant of heavy mechanical engineering, which in several years became one of the largest enterprises in the industry, Zhdanovdijmaj Production Association, later, Azovmaj was created.
The enterprises of the light and food industry continued to develop. In port, new moorings and the whole areas were constructed. These years, new high-rise residential districts grew, new schools, children's plants, medical institutions, dispensaries, shops and catering establishments are built. In the city, 2 higher educational institutions, 8 technical schools, 14 technical training colleges, 66 comprehensive schools, 5 schools of young workers and the correspondence, 8 nurseries of music schools, 16 nurseries of sports schools, children's art school, the station of young technicians, a flotilla of young seamen, 3 regional houses of pioneers and school students. The town house of pioneers, which became operational in 1987, worked. The network of preschool institutions made 167 kindergartens, gardens, day nursery. Cultural institutions, physical culture and sport continued to develop. In 1959, in the city, activity of the Russian Drama Theatre was restored, and in 1960 the wonderful new building of theatre decorated the downtown. The musical school and showroom of A1. He and she were open, the city library of 5G. Korolenko received the new room, several palaces of culture and sport, stadiums and swimming pools are built. With development of city economy, also the number of its inhabitants grew. 1958, 2803,000 people. 1970, 436,000 people. 1989, 540.3 thousand man. The enterprises of the city gave to the country a steel sheet and pipes, railway rails and metal designs, railway tank cars and gondola cars, converters, gantry and portal cranes, fire extinguishers, radiators for heavy load cars, washing machines, crystalware, sewing, hosiery and confectionery, fishing networks and fish, canned food, and there are a lot of other products. By the end of the 1980th years in Zhdanov, there were 44 industrial enterprises, 44 construction and 10 transport organizations. In the second half of the 1980th years, in the Soviet Union, reorganization which caused economic and political changes in Zhdanov began. On January 13, 1989, returned to the city at the request of its inhabitants the historical name Mariupol. In April 2014, as a result of armed conflict in the east of Ukraine, the city under the control was taken by the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic. After the events on May 9, 2014, all law enforcement agencies submitting to the Ukrainian government were brought out of the city. The acting mayor kept the power and tried to agree with DNR. On May 25, in the city there took place the election of the President of Ukraine. Despite low turnout of voters, the Sechexi declared them valid. During successful military operations, on June 13 the Ukrainian army during approach returned the city under the control. After elimination of formations of the DD, according to the order of the President of Ukraine Petro Poroshenko, the regional authorities were temporarily transferred to Mariupol until October 11, 2014. The city was the regional center of Donetsk region. Officially, civil authorities of Donetsk region were transferred only on October 13, 2014, what the governor of the region Alexander Kiktenko reported about. From now on, the Donetsk Regional Public Administration is located in Kramatorsk, which became the temporary center of Donetsk region, and law enforcement agencies of the region remain in Mariupol. In recent years, within administrative decentralization, the city budget received considerable gain thanks to what reconstruction of the central part of the city is carried out. His tourist appeal increases.
After 2014, Mariupol began to host large economic and cultural forums of the government of Ukraine.
The number of actual population of the city for January 1, 2021 is 431,859 people. Within the city council, taking into account urban-type settlements, the old Crimea, Sartana, Tolokovka, the villages of Gutovo, Vinogradnoye and the settlement of Lomakino subordinates to the city council.
For January 1 of 2020, 457,439 people, that made 11% of population of area.
For the last century, the number of the population grew almost by 12 times. In the city there live Ukrainians, Russians, Greeks, Belarusians, Armenians, Jews and representatives of other nationalities. In communication, Russian absolutely prevails. Called native language. For December 5, 2001. Russian -457,350 people. 89.53%. Ukrainian -50420 people. 9.87%. 11 temples of Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchy, which are subordinated to the Donetsk and Mariupol dioceses. 3 churches of Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Kiev Patriarchy. 52 various religious communities. The Nikolaev Cathedral on Novosilovka. Helniskaya Street, 114. The building of the temple in a modern look is built in 1993. In the temple there are 2 great shrines. Copy of a wonder-working icon of the Mother of God, Crimea Mariupol, and relics of the prelate Ignatiy Mariupolsky. Other temples of the city. The Nikolaev Portovskoye. Primorsky district. Long time of the temple stood still a cross. His arrival he appeared in 1999. The new temple is built in 2001. Consecration was made by the head of Ukrainian Orthodox Church, the Blessed Vladimir, the Metropolitan of Kiev and all Ukraine. Every Thursday, except the Lent period. In the temple the holy water prayer with reading the Akathist to the prelate Nicholas the Wonderworker is made. Prestoli Day on May 22. Sacred Archistratic Mikhail. Levobereny district. It is open in 1997. In the temple there is a copy of a wonder-working icon of the Mother of God, the Zhivanosny source. In honor of this icon the lower temple is consecrated. Every Friday and revival before this icon is made a holy water prayer. In the territory of the temple the monument to the Metropolitan Ignatiy Mariupolsky is established. Prestoli Days, on November 21 and Friday of the Bright Week. The first Friday after Easter. The Sacred and Troitsk Temple. The 17th Residential District, City Hospital No. The temple is open in 2006. In the territory of City Hospital No. 2. Construction of the standard temple is conducted. Now the construction of the temple is completed, it works from the middle of 2008. Prestoli Day -50 day after the Easter Sunday. Easter. Preobrazhensky. Coastal District Cherry-Mushki. Prophet Ilya. Komyuski District, Ats Old Crimea. Uspensky. Levobereny District. Saint Prince of Vladimir. Levobereny District East. Reverend Ambrose Optinsky. Komyuski District Volonyarov. Hieromartyr Harlem Pia. Komyuski District Settlement. Marny. Great Martyr Georgy. Komyuski District Settlement of Sartana. Virgin's Christmas. Komyuski District Settlement of Tolokovka. Boris and Gleb. Coastal District Settlement of Seaman. Also since 2010 construction of new Sacred Pokrovsky Cathedral in the downtown is conducted. The municipal coat of arms represents historically traditional board at the heart of which a rectangle with the parties in proportions of golden ratio. The board is divided into 2 equal parts across by the wavy line, the graphic representation of the sea. The top field, the silver. Gray. Color symbolizing steel. The main products of the industry of the city. Nizhny Polya, the blue color symbolizing the sea. Geography of location of the city. The central graphic symbol of the coat of arms, anchor, a symbol of the seaside seaport, international trade and also as a mechanical engineering product. The anchor ring. A gold circle on a gray background. Symbolizes a ladle from which metal, forming anchor contours, flows. The digital 1778 symbol designates year of foundation of the city. The main sense of graphic and color schemes of a municipal coat of arms of Mariupol, the southern city by the sea, the city of metallurgists, seamen, mechanicians, the city of international trade. Sea Gate of Donbass. The city color. The composite, graphic and color scheme of a municipal coat of arms is constructed under laws of science on heraldry taking into account continuity of the composite principles of 1st. 1811. Of the coat of arms of Mariupol. Thus, canons of modification of the coats of arms are observed eventually, historical continuity of the main symbol of city sovereignty is reflected. Today Mariupol is the center of metallurgy and mechanical engineering of Ukraine, the region, major for economy, one of the main donors, a source of currency receipts in the budget of the country. More than 10% of the general level. The largest sea trade port. Mariupol is included into 10 the largest cities of the country, the 9/10 shares places. With the city of Nikolaev. On population in Ukraine. At the same time its value and as resort remains. After declaration of independence of Ukraine, influence of Mariupol as one of the sports centers of the country considerably increased. Mariupol, the center of the Greek culture in Ukraine. Architecture. Old Mariupol. The area limited from the south to the coast of the Sea of Azov, from the east the Kalmius River, from the north, Boulevard Shevchenko, from the west Metallurgov Avenue. Is built up mainly with low houses and kept the pre-revolutionary architecture. Only Kimchi Street and Mura Avenue after the Great Patriotic War are built up with buildings of so-called Stalin architecture. Two houses with a spike, the building of dramatic theatre, Dosov, toy store. Modern building of Pum Bank. Ukraine department store. The former Central department store. And others. Have architectural value also at home at Victory Square in Lvoboreny district. So-called Free Side. The Mariupol Mosque, the central district of Mariupol. From Metallurgov Avenue to Stroitly Avenue. Is almost continuous administrative and commercial building mixed up with housing stock. The building of the city council, post office, the Lukamori movie theater, which was a name of Lukov. The Mariupol State University, the Azov State Technical University, 2, the Central City Library of Korolenko, large shops. Dental Polyclinic, 1,000 trifles, etc. Can apply only some 1-2-story buildings in the old town for A-rank architecture monuments. Gorgovaya Street, Italian, Greek, Harlampievsky, etc. The Mariupol Sea Trade architecture of other residential areas port. Western East, Kirov, Cherymashki, the 5th, 17th, 23rd residential districts and others. Don't differ in special originality and are presented by standard 5, 9, 12, 14-story houses. Housing stock of the city is 9.82 molnem. Total area. Security of the population with housing minus 19.3 m on average on 1 inhabitant. Specific weight of the privatized housing. For 2003. Minus 76.3%. In the city monuments to A. 1. Kimchi T. G. Shevchenko A. S. Pushkin 5. S. Vysotsky and other outstanding people are established. Monuments in honor of liberation of Donbass, a monument to soldiers to internationalists, composition, metallurgist, a monument to the Prince Svetoslav Rabry and many others. City holidays. Christmas fair in Centralny Square. Except nationwide holidays in Mariupol note. City Day. The Sunday of September following after Day of Liberation of Mariupol. Day of release of the city from illegal armed groups. On June 13. Day of the Metallurgist, a professional holiday for many residents. The third Sunday of July. Day of the Mechanician. Day of release of the city from fascist aggressors. On September. Day of the Seaman and other professional holidays. In the city council, which is headed by the mayor, is created. In the city, traditionally high support of the left and pro-Russian political forces. In parliamentary elections of 2007, the Party of Regions received 42.6% of votes of Mariupol, the Socialist Party of Ukraine of 42.4%, the Communist Party of Ukraine of 4.1% of voters. Despite strong support of Socialist Party in Mariupol, in one of 2 constituencies she even received more than a half of votes. The SPU didn't go to parliament. In April-May 2014, Mariupol was involved in an all-Ukrainian political crisis.
On April 13 in Mariupol, before the building of city council, there took place the meeting of supporters of federalization of Ukraine, which brought together about 1,000 people.
As a result, supporters of the DD proclaimed the power of the DD in the city.
In April, May in the city repeatedly there were collisions between the security officers representing the Ukrainian authorities and supporters of the DD. Opposition in Mariupol reached the greatest heat in the night of April 17, 2014, when supporters of the DD tried to storm the military unit located within the city. On June 13, 2014, soldiers of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, voluntary battalions and National Guard of Ukraine restored control of the Ukrainian power over the city.
In Mariupol, 5 industrial enterprises of various forms of ownership work. The industry of the city diversified with prevalence of the heavy industry.
According to the rating report of the expert rating agency, the largest industrial enterprises of Mariupol are Mariupol Iron and Steel Works of a name of Ilyich, Azovstal, Azovmash Concern, Mariupol Sea Trade Port, Azov Electrostal, Thermal Plant, Azov Ship Repair Plant, Elektrobit Priber Plant, Mariupol Skilled and Experimental Plant.
Former plant Salmash. October plant Marve Enterprise. Windows and Plastic. Magma plant.
It is possible to distinguish a garment factory, confectionery and also the enterprises of the food industry of MEMC from the enterprises of light industry. The total amount of the sold industrial output and selling prices of the enterprises for 2014 was 50.5 billion won, 30.8% of all regional volume of the sold products across Mariupol.
In structure of the industry, about 82.5%, metallurgy, 8.4%, mining industry, 2.8%, food, 2.7%, mechanical engineering, 1.0%, production of gas, the electric power, 0.4%, chemical industry. By 2014, the Azovmash concern practically suspended activity. Transport. Mariupol is a point of intersection of routes of national and international value. Sloviansk, Donetsk, Mariupol, PN, and Rostov-on-Don, Odessa, EM. From Mariupol through traffic to a number of the cities of Ukraine, Russia, Belarus is carried up. In the city, the international bus station and suburban bus station is -2 functions. The Mariupol Sea Trade Port. The largest on the Sea of Azov and one of the largest in Ukraine, goods turnover about 15 million a year. All the year round carries out cargo transportation to dozens of the countries of the world.
Prior to armed conflict in the east of Ukraine, there was an accurate trend of destruction of transport connection of Mariupol with the cities of Ukraine and the abroad. The similar situation was observed also with the city public transport.
So in Mariupol, intracity bus traffic was almost completely destroyed. Capacious city buses were succeeded by the numerous share taxis belonging to tens of small transport firms and business owners. The trolleybus park was reduced almost by a half and was worn out for 70–80%. New cars were practically not bought. From 15 trolleybus routes remained 10–12, with an interval of the movement at some 1 o'clock and more. The tram park was almost completely worn out, completely closed, one of tram parks. Before aggression in the east of Ukraine, a steady trend of reorientation of the Mariupol passenger traffic to the next Donetsk was observed. Passenger doesn't function and Morvaksat. In anticipation of Euro-2012 systematic destruction of railway communication of Mariupol with the cities of Ukraine and Russia was observed. The trains forming on the station Mariupol to Lviv, Bryansk, Voronezh, Leysk were cancelled. After liberation of Mariupol from the pro-Russian separatists, through some period, trains began to ply along earlier cancelled routes again. Since 2016 the situation with public transport began to improve. On a regular basis purchase of new rolling stocks thereof intervals on routes decreased was resumed and also new routes of public transport were started. Construction. Industrial construction prevails. Massachusetts building of residential quarters in the city terminated in the 80s to 20th century. Now mainly comfortable housing is under construction. The construction organizations of the city for 2014 executed the volume of contract installation and construction works for 666 million hryvnias. Specific weight of the city on this indicator in city -15.7%. The maximum volume was observed in 2008. 1815.8 million wa. And 2007. 1600.0 million wa. In the city all leading Ukrainian mobile operators work. In Soviet period in the city 10 automatic telephone exchanges worked, 8 digital automatic telephone exchanges were added recently. The budget revenues of the city in 2014 were 1,582.9 million wa, including more than 600 million wa grants of the state and regional budgets. Mariupol to the middle of the old years was one of the largest donors of the state budget of Ukraine. The average salary in 2019 on the city -14076. 00 wa. At US dollar exchange rate for May 1, 2019 of 25.62 wa, the average salary is equal to 549.71 US.
The average annual number of regular workers for 2014, 137.1 thousand demand.
Dynamics of number. 2013 146.6 thousand, 2012 160.7, 2011 147.8, 2005 173.7. The wages fund of Mariupol -6.4 billion hryvnias a year. In 2005 2.63 billion.
Debts of the enterprises of the city for salary were reduced for 2005 by
1% and make 5.1 million hryvnias. The volume of the rendered services in 9 months 2005, 860.4 million hryvnias. The volume of retail trade for the same term -838.7 million hryvnias. The volume of the rendered services for 2004, 805.6 million hryvnias. The enterprises of the city in 9 months 2005 received positive financial result. Profit. By the sum of 3.2 billion hryvnias, that is 23.6% more than last year's. Direct foreign investments. For the beginning of 2004. -21.2 million US dollars, that is 42 US dollars on one person. The number of small enterprises -68 on 10,000 people. For 2004. Their specific weight in the general production of goods and services -1.8%. The number of the export enterprises -108. The cost of total exports of goods of Mariupol in 2003, 2.1 billion US dollars. Culture. Donetsk Academic Regional Drama Theatre. In 2008, the oldest theatre of area celebrated the 130th anniversary. In theatre, the talented group of actors, among whom 2 national and 2 honored artists of Ukraine, works. For a contribution to spiritual education of the region, the Dramatic Theatre in 2000 became the winner of the competition, Gold and Scythian. The building of theatre was almost completely destroyed on March 16, 2022 during invasion of Russia to Ukraine. Puppet Theatre. It is created in 1999. Experimental Theatre Studio Miotida. In the neighborhood of the city on the bank of the Sea of Azov, the archaeology monument, the late Neolithic tribal burial ground of the end of the 3 millennium, is open B.C. During excavation, over 120 skeletons are revealed here. About them, stone and bone tools and beads, jewelry from sinks of mollusks, teeth of animals are found. The Mariupol writers used the Russian, Ukrainian, Greek, Rumeski languages in the works. Regular TV broadcasting in Mariupol began since April 28, 1958. Broadcasting of the first TSA channel from Moscow on 5 TOX was conducted. In the 70th, the 80th residents of Mariupol could already watch 3 programs of the Soviet TV. On TV screens there were from Kiev on 31 TOX and the second TSA program from Moscow on 25 TOX. The first air from Mariupol was carried out in 1969 on 5 TOX. The first telecasts of the Mariupol TV of Priozovi appeared in 1992 on 25 TOX. The first full-fledged Mariupol TV company, Sigma, began broadcasting with spring of 1992. The Mariupol Rotst carries out broadcasting 27 nationwide and 2 regional. Sigma and Donbass channels of digital television in DVB-T format. Also analog broadcasting remains. 21 present. USA. 28 Sigma. Mariupol. 31 Inter. Kiev. 38 MTV. Mariupol. 43 ICT. Kiev. 48 New Channel. Kiev. 51 Ukraine. Kiev. 59 Saint. Kiev. Will. Though it is difficult because of the insufficient power of a signal. Broadcasting of the Russian TV channels from Donetsk. In Mariupol there are about 10 companies which are engaged in provision of services of cable TV. The coast of the Sea of Azov and Museum of Local Lore is of tourist interest mainly. Around the city the strip of resort communities stretched. Azov, Yarevka, Yalta, Belisarayski Braid, Malakino, Krape, Seaside, Pioneer, Sopino, Berdyansk, Shirokino, Bezamenoi, Samsonovo, Novazovsk, Sadovo and others. The first sanatoria are opened in the city in 1926. Along the sea here throughout 16 km the narrow strip of sandy beaches lasts. Water temperature in the summer plus 22. 24 C. Duration of a swimming season more than 120 days. Warm sea water is rich with iodine and minerals. Sport. In this season 2020/21 football clubs, Mariupol. Earlier Eliachiovets. Acted in the Ukrainian Premier League. Mariupol Basketball Club. Earlier, Azovmash. The 7-time champion of Ukraine, the permanent participant of Euro Cups of FIBA and ULEP. In the season 2006/07 I reached a cup final of the Call of FIBA where lost to Spanish Girona. Club of Water Polo Mariupol, for many years the constant champion of Ukraine, the participant of Euro Cups. In the recent past Mariupol was presented by Volleyball Club Markakim, the prize winner of the Championship of Ukraine. His school of the Mariupol boxing, Greco-Roman wrestling, rhythmic gymnastics, etc. Achieved serious progress. Mariupol athletes, numerous participants and prize winners of the World Cups, Europe and Olympic Games. Annually in Mariupol the international tournament on boxing of Class A, Makar Mazea's Memorial is held. In 2009 in Mariupol and Donetsk the European Football Championship among young men up to 19 years which took place at Ilyich and Zapadny stadiums was held. Science and Education. Mariupol State University. Azov State Technical University. The 65th educational institutions, including 63 comprehensive schools, where 39804 school students study. 6 higher education institutions work, including 2 universities. Mariupol State University and Azov State Technical University. Representations and branches of higher education institutions from another town, 1 gymnasium, 4 lyceums, 4 regional boarding schools, 2 private schools, 9 professional educational institutions. 3173 pupils. 84 preschool institutions. 10833 children. In the city there are about 70 medical and improving and medical institutions. Several large hospital complexes, polyclinics, improving complexes, dispensaries. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.